Okay, guys, we did it. We actually filmed an episode in a house.
Woohoo!
We've been recording for 3 years almost.
A long time.
And we haven't filmed an episode in a house.
Yeah, I thought we were supposed to be housebound.
I know, that's literally the namesake of our entire show. Welcome to Housebound. I'm Chris.
I'm Holly.
I'm Ashlyn.
I'm Greg.
You're invited. It seemed like an awkwardly long pause there. Welcome to Housebound, a podcast we made because we needed company at one point. Clearly, we've had too much time with each other by this point.
Yeah.
This is a show where we talk about things that are on our minds that day. And today, because we are filming in an actual house, we are going to use that as a great opportunity to talk about homes.
Yes, you said like an house, like an actual house, as if we broke into somebody's house and be like, look, we're here, guys.
Nobody knows whose house this is.
Ooh.
No, this is a very nice place. Usually we're recording in the basement of our place.
Mm-hmm.
Now we just rent our house, so that makes it seem less interesting by default because we don't own it, so we can't. It's like, it's
But
not ours.
It's
so.
still
You at
Interesting.
least rent the entire house.
But we
do.
do. Okay,
Yes.
so we do rent
Yeah.
the entire house,
We don't
yeah.
share
Mm-hmm.
because
Nope.
we don't share well.
That's a topic for another day. No. This is so it's taken us almost the entire length of this podcast, like as a whole, because as we mentioned last episode, we're winding down. But so it took us almost 3 years to actually get to the point of filming in a house. And we filmed in studio space a couple different times.
Yep.
And then this is the first house one. So it was monumental in that regard. So that's why this isn't like we did a filming for the 50th anniversary, 50th episode, I guess, episode of our first anniversary.
Yeah.
But this is like,
Whose like fledgling relationship are you a part of? The 50th anniversary of the first time we recorded.
that other family that
I feel like podcasts haven't been around long enough for there to ever be a 50th anniversary.
Yeah,
Maybe
I think
not.
the
Yeah.
longest one that I listened to has been going on for 15 years.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I could see when. Yeah, I don't know when the first podcast launched, but that would have been on iPod. So
Yeah, it was
Yes.
a long, like it's been around since
The first podcast
the beginning.
was somebody's grocery list note to self on their like, little
If
cassette
they had, like, a
recorder.
that they
recorder.
accidentally put
Yeah.
out there for
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah. We have like a suitcase, one of those tape suitcases full of tapes from when we were kids where we would like put them in and record. So I guess if you want to consider that a podcast, that might be actually a trip, is have a podcast that's just literally old recordings of like some family growing
Yeah.
up. That would be a really cool idea for a podcast. That's a really cool.
Seems like you
Trademarked,
need to
registered.
And then halfway through, one of the kids dies.
Yeah,
Whoa.
seems like you
Add
need to
some drama.
pre-listen to those before
Yeah.
you put them online.
Well, I was thinking
Suddenly
of
there's
using
becomes
a
a crime
haunting.
podcast.
Yeah, true crime podcast.
Haunting.
I was thinking it would have to be like one of our families
Still,
so that we
Ooh.
knew.
you know that they don't die, but like, who knows what your sibs put on those tapes?
Mm-hmm.
I did. Well, we always listen to ours, so we know what's on all the tapes. It's just a bunch. It's just us doing fake news reports. Like,
There's already too much
What
of
an
that
interesting family you are.
nowadays.
it's all right.
Today is December 4th. Dad's been gone for 3 weeks now.
Oh no! Was
It's not okay.
went to get milk. Never came back. Yike. Yeah. Well. Okay. Secret's over. It's your house.
Yay!
Hey.
Did you know we were in your house?
Yes.
You can take your blindfolds off.
Yeah. I was questioning at first, but
When we
realized,
broke in
yeah.
with ski masks, and we're like, we're gonna set something up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a secret. Oh, it's a podcast.
Yeah.
But thanks for letting us be here. Yeah, this, okay. Way back in the first episode, we talked about this. If you go to anchor.fm/housebound, I'm going to try to, for those of you that are listening, I'm trying to frame this up in the camera properly. Hence the pause. The description of our podcast includes, there's probably something for everyone, so why not listen in? After all, we're bound to talk about stuff in our houses eventually. It took us 57 episodes and a few specials to get there. So nearly 60 episodes, but we're finally filming. We're filming in a house. And like I said, we've been recording in our place.
Mm-hmm.
But this feels, I don't know, more
It's
monumental
special.
because it's a special time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also special. This is your guys' first owned house. Like you have also been renting up until now.
Yep.
So it's significant in that regards too. So let's chat about renting a home. Like we can only come at it from the rental side of things, but like
do you feel like adults now?
Yeah.
Well, yes and no. Like I have enjoyed having this house a lot more than I thought I would. I really like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really love being here. But at the same time, a lot of this, if we're describing like the house buying and like renovating and stuff like that process, a lot of it my parents helped with. And
a lot of it lots of people's parents help with.
But they're still very involved in like helping us care. Like we had to blow out the sprinklers before winter because we have underground sprinklers.
I didn't realize that you guys had underground sprinklers.
We do have a front and back, which is really nice.
That's fun.
Wow.
Yeah. So like Dad came over.
Yeah.
So I think like as the time goes on, we'll eventually take care of more of those tasks on our own.
Take more ownership of the
Your
responsibility
ownership.
of the home.
In the meantime, I feel like we are still like you know, like when you get your learner's license, we have our homeowner's license.
Like your training wheels for owning the house. You have to get through one full summer, one through full winter first.
Yeah.
And then in the second winter and the second summer, you can be like,
then they'll stop helping.
Oh, this didn't happen the last time. Like this is suddenly from the second year on, it's like it's a new issue, even though you've only had the house for 1 year.
Yeah. But thankfully, like I know it's almost like a trope at this point that people buy their first home and then discover like 1,000 problems with it. And it's just like, well, this is what we got. So let's make the best of it and try to fix all these issues. We got really lucky with this house. Like we did the inspection and it was pretty clean. And honestly, we haven't had anything come up that we didn't already know from the inspection.
How many months have you now owned the home?
When did we get possession of the house? Do you remember, Greg?
Sometime around the beginning of May, right?
Yeah,
I was way too quiet.
Yeah.
Try again.
You are being mic'd.
Sometime around the beginning of May, I think. I'm quiet because I'm uncertain.
I
feel like it's one of those things that I should know that like when I got
Maybe.
possession of this wonderful piece of real estate.
I remember that it was at least in the summer, and you guys had ownership of it for like a month before you moved in because you were upgrading it.
Well,
and
I
stuff,
think
right?
it was like a month and a half before we moved in.
Yeah.
I think we got it around like second week of May, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Because we moved in the first weekend of July.
Yeah.
So we've been in here for a few months now. Does that mean we've completely finished unpacking? No.
No.
Nope.
But this house has lots of storage, so you can just kind of shove it somewhere and then pretend it's not there.
We also
forget.
don't have kids, and kids
that
take
also
up a lot
helps.
of space.
Yeah, we don't have
Yeah.
to baby-proof anything, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that this was a really good setup. So we listeners on the podcast non-video version of this, we are sitting in what is a long, narrow.
You're describing the place like just lie down.
Yeah.
Close your eyes.
Close your eyes.
And journey with me.
Feel your
into
shoulders.
the ride
Relax
home.
into the floor.
Yeah.
Feel that.
There's
carpet.
a tingling from
Drama
your head.
class.
And it's coming down
Yeah.
your shoulders into your arms.
You are surrounded
anyways,
by blue walls.
Well, gray.
They're not blue.
They're
kind of
gray.
bluish.
They're not
the
blue.
Paint color was called pearl gray.
And it still feels blue.
3 out of 4
It's not
podcasters
blue.
are not colorblind. I get colors semi-wrong all the time. But yes, to continue what I was saying before, we're in this like what would you call this?
It's like a rectangular kind of den
thing.
area.
Family room.
It's quite long.
It's long. It's got one window to the backyard on one side. It's got 3 small windows to the front yard on the other side. It's very well lit. I really like the lighting in here, especially in the afternoon. You don't actually even need any lights. You can just sit in here and read a book or watch it. You might want curtains if you're watching a show. There's a television. There's a little entertainment system. and there's stairs behind Holly and myself, the shot behind Holly and myself, going up to, what would you call this? More than a bi-level split.
Yeah.
What would you call the kind of house that it is?
This is an elevated bi-level.
Yeah.
Elevated bi-level.
as
So we're
soon
going
as you
up to a
come
landing
inside,
and then up again to the living room kitchen area.
You're immediately greeted with stairs.
Yeah.
So you can go half a flight up.
Choose your own adventure.
So yeah, it's
For the main
wonderful for
floor.
grandparents. Great.
Oh no.
Great.
Yeah.
Is it actually? I
No.
would assume
No.
it's not.
This is not wheelchair accessible.
not.
Oh, I see
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Even in a tiny bit.
Do either of you have grandparents in a wheelchair?
No.
Okay.
I think it's just like a matter of fact, just to
I was
give
just
a
wondering if that
visualization.
was a thing that
Yeah.
they
Oh,
had
okay.
run into already.
Yeah, and so like and it's like you've done some work in here. You've painted.
Yep.
You've got new
We
trim
painted
around
the
the
whole
windows.
house.
The
It took
whole
forever.
thing.
You've got-
Holly helped us out the first day. That was great.
Mhm.
You've got new
So we
only
windows
did the
too.
So
basement.
did both
so-
sets of parents were here. So it was, but it took forever.
Yeah. Now, this is a much more inviting space than
Than it
our
was.
den.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Our den is more of a square than a rectangle. It's still a rectangle technically, but it's
It has
closer
no
to square,
light.
and it's got one small window on one side, and it's got nothing on the other side. It's
Yeah.
just walls.
Well, and that
Um,
window isn't like, it's like a, what's it called
Oh,
when the
it's-
window is like technically
There's
kind
a
of
window
below?
well.
Egress?
Window well.
Yeah. And
So it's
below
one
ground.
of those legal ones that it's
Mhm.
not a bedroom where
Mhm.
we're usually in. So it doesn't need to have such a big exit point, but it does need to have a legally spaced exit point.
Yeah.
And so then the window flips inwards actually, which I feel like it goes against what they want, but it flips inwards and it goes all the way up. It's on a hinge at the
Oh.
top, and so you could
Weird.
lift it up and crawl through and crawl out the
Yeah.
well.
I don't
you
know
really
if I
had
could
to.
crawl through. I don't know if you could crawl through that window either.
Well, nobody can like get up to the window in the first place.
Yeah, that's true. It's
Mhm.
too
Mm.
Do
tall.
you use
It's like-
all of your adrenaline to soar through the window?
I think it's.
I'd have to.
I think
I'd
it's
have
that
to
there's
move
the.
our table closer
Yeah.
and then jump off of it.
Yeah.
I think it's
Do a
supposed to be that there's
somersault
an
through the
option.
other
I think
end
that's the
and-
biggest thing.
You definitely go through the wall
Yeah.
if you somersaulted through that window.
You choose who to sacrifice to the fire, and the other person helps the other one up.
Yeah, there
But-
are other windows that are better.
There's also stairs on the
Exits.
door. Like
Yeah.
we can get out.
If
But
we're stuck down there.
we started.
The one with the good window is actually locked.
That's true. That's not the
we
window.
could burn
the door.
to death in our
Yeah.
basement.
Okay.
Okay.
It's
this
not the
is
direction I was hoping to go with this
Emergency
episode.
response planning with the Housebound podcast.
But this space though, like
Face,
this,
arms,
like beyond
speech.
just painting though,
Time to call 911.
to make the space more welcome. Like we did take out a whole temporary wall that had been set up, like
Mm.
over top of like, and it was a full wall. Like it was, but it was built on carpet.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So
like
this-
right where Ashlyn and Holly are, they would,
There's like a bulkhead above them.
yeah, it
But
would.
you can see a little bit on the, I mean,
Oh,
the
yeah.
captive audience
Yeah,
can't,
this one.
but you can see a little bit of a line on our lovely popcorn ceiling of where the wall used to be.
Yeah. So it
Yeah.
was two
So
rooms,
So it was
like
two
an
rooms.
office and a sitting room, and
yeah, it was
just
like
made
a
it one long
bedroom.
den.
So kinda area.
So we've got all of this space over here for sitting.
Yeah.
And I chose that we should film this direction because I liked the house feel of
different
it because
yeah.
we've got different aspects of a home, and we're doing it's the Housebound podcast, and we're doing an episode about houses. But the other option was to film in the other direction, which also still has light. The backgrounds are kind of boring, but if we, instead of having the cameras over here, if we had a camera over there, hello,
Hey.
then you will see this wonderful, what do you call it?
Ta-da.
Game shelf.
shrine.
I'm
We
so
already
sorry. This
established
camera
that.
is still in the way, but
It's okay.
That's a lot of games. But I would like to point out that the shelves for your game shelf
Mhm.
are all bowing.
Yeah.
Oh, correct.
The middle shelf is very old, so and it used to have books on it.
And
so I
this
think
is
that's
these
why
are all
it's
from
bowing.
like Walmart.
It's a
You know, like
is
they're
this
not.
due to
They're
the
not.
age of the shelves or
built to
just the
last.
heaviness of
If
it?
you were to take the board games off, it would still be in that shape.
Oh,
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
I
this
was
is
like,
permanent.
that's a
Flip
lot
the
of
shelves upside
games.
down and let them.
Well,
I
the
know the
problem is
bottom
the other
the
side.
other side
yeah, it's
doesn't
not
look as
painted.
good. Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah.
right. But if you did that for like a week and then flip them back,
I don't know if a week would be enough.
Yeah. anyways.
But that's what makes
Yeah,
a house
I
a
love
home,
it.
right?
Yes,
Games.
it is. It is.
I mean, our basement is the same way. Our den is the same way.
Mhm.
We've got bookshelves on one side with books. We've got a bookshelf on the other side with games, and then a couple bookshelves with movies.
Yep.
And you can't really see it very well, but behind Ashlyn, there's a shelf with your guys' movie collection or
With
part
movies.
of.
Mhm.
And then, yeah,
Yeah.
shelves.
Shelves.
Like when we're looking for a place to rent, we're looking for a place that has functional space, but then around the edges we can also have some shelves because we've got lots of things to keep on shelves.
Yep.
Yeah,
Easy
our
access.
upstairs office is essentially a library right now.
I love So nice.
Yep.
Tons and tons of books.
It's a nice large room,
Mhm.
though.
When Ashlyn married me, she also got a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
She also
Not
married
stuff that
your
she
books.
would necessarily enjoy, but it's
needed.
there.
Yeah.
She could if she tried.
I did not know what I was getting into.
Bins and crates of books and board games. So.
But I, at the same time, like the books I mock Greg openly for because I think that owning that many books is stupid. But the board games I can get on board with because I think that like of all the hobbies to have, that is the most wholesome hobby you could possibly have is board games.
Fighting
because
with friends.
Yeah.
It invites people into your home. It's often being like hosted at somebody's house and you're spending time with other people face to face. So I think like
It creates
what's
a more
healthier than that?
creates a more relaxed atmosphere.
Yeah.
Too,
As long as you're
I've-
not playing the resistance, you're fine.
yeah.
I want to get.
Or that game that
Space
ruins
Alert?
friends. Oh, that one's also
Oh, yeah.
terrible. No, I was thinking about Magic Maze.
Magic
Oh,
Maze.
yeah,
I've
I-
actually sold that one.
You sold it.
I did.
Because I
Yeah.
won't play it anymore.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's hard on friendships. It is.
I really
Just, like,
enjoy it,
frickin'
but
move.
yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
I get you.
I actually enjoyed it as well, but definitely
It takes
like,
a little
can
bit
be
of the
frustrated.
social
Yeah.
yeah.
side out of it. Yeah.
I want to talk about that more,
Mm-hmm.
about what you were saying there. But I just wanted to like interject and make a note of that. The reason that we wanted to, well, we were filming at home during the pandemic when we started it,
On
and we were
Zoom?
filming over Zoom. But then as soon as we were able to get together and we had access to this board during our second season, we started using it more. And like we chose to use it at our house, and we're choosing to do this here at your house because podcasting in a familiar place is exactly what you were saying about like the board games. It's like you're inviting people in, you're relaxed. Like podcasting someplace familiar is comforting and relaxing. This isn't my house, but I know that there's not like
Monsters.
upstairs tenants that are like walking around making noise
Monsters, yeah.
or or like at our house, we talk about this off and on. We have Odin that runs around, and we have to like
This.
decollar him.
We talk about
And
this.
well, we have
Odin.
mentioned it a few times. It's like he's a bit of work to like keep quiet during the recording of the podcast and things like that. And like, but our house is still comfortable, and you guys usually come over to ours, and yours had more space to have all this set up for the cameras and stuff, and it's just like really nice being here. And I think that's what I wanted from the podcast the entire time, whether I knew that I wanted it to be recorded in a house or not. Recording it in the house makes it feel more natural, or dare I say authentic. That word is so overused, but like we actually like we made the podcast so that we could spend more time with each other. And over the last year, there's been a couple of times that we've gotten together outside of recording an episode. And that's part of the thing that I feel like the podcast that we miss out on because of the podcast is we get together, we record it, we record a podcast, and we hang out, and we're like interacting, and I dare say having a bit of fun doing it, but it's not it's like not the same as just hanging out, right?
every second.
So I'm looking forward to beyond the podcast being like, oh, once a month we'll get together maybe or more and actually hang out. And it'll be less work for me. We won't have to be worried about like, oh, the camera's on us, I guess I better smile. Hi. Anyways, all that to say, the podcasting experience, I feel like, especially also for the listeners, should be relaxing and not something. And that's why better equipment makes it more enjoyable to listen to. But yeah, all that to say, that's why homes are a good place to be recording, or at least in my opinion. So But yeah, let's talk about homes that we've all lived in a few different places, yeah, especially in the last 5 or 6 years. This is like Holly and I are in the third place that we've been in since we got married 7.5 years ago.
Wow.
So that's like every 2.5 years.
Yeah, that's
average
a lot.
move kind
it's
of
annoying.
thing. If you count the move out from the first places that we were in right when we got married. So
but you're in a really good spot right now.
Yeah.
we're in a nice place. It's like it's our own.
Yeah.
And that's nice about it, and that's the thing. And I feel like we've talked about renters or rentals before, so I don't want to talk too much about that.
A little bit more, like they're so annoying.
But like being below or above somebody, you constantly have to be aware. Like, am I too loud?
Yes.
And I worry about that too. I'm like over concerned for like other people not being inconvenienced by me.
Keep the volume down on your TV shows.
Volume down on the TV, or is your bedroom right below their bathroom, or is your kitchen right above their living room? Or
Wow.
like no.
Oh, okay.
But it might. I mean, we were below somebody else. So
never
who knows?
is your bedroom right below a bathroom because
plumbing.
Most houses have plumbing that goes straight up, and your bathroom is above their bathroom or close to.
Typically. So
yeah.
And some of our friends have been in several different kinds of like suites, basement suites that are smaller than the upstairs suite, and so their entire dwelling is below a portion of the upstairs dwelling, and like hearing about their issues with that. But yeah, I'm really grateful to be able to be in a place that's just
your own.
That's just our own, and we got lucky. We have quite a bit of free reign with the place that we're in, and the opportunity to do some minor changes or minor
and how many changes
are you
want
talking
to
about
make,
like digging like minor like
finding gems?
If we're gonna like put a little extension to the deck in the backyard or something like that, then digging. But
there we go.
No.
Minor changes.
But yes, we would love to own our own place, but we do have enough of a bit of freedom and a bit of knowledge of situations we've run into in the past couple of rentals that we've been in, that when issues crop up with the home itself, we don't know everything about how to repair it, but we can easily identify that like something is going wrong, hopefully sooner than it becomes a really big issue, and we can kind of get that figured out. And we know enough people that can help us figure that stuff out.
Ashlynn's parents.
Well, we haven't used them at all, but like, I mean, if we wanted to put in a backsplash, then
anything,
you know who to call.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about. So you were saying that your parents helped you out with quite a bit of stuff. You talked about the painting.
Yeah.
Let's start at the beginning of the process. So it's 2022, and you've bought a house. But how long ago were you looking seriously at like? Looking to buy.
We had looked for a while, but like seriously for like a year.
Well, no, I think it was a little bit less than that. We had been looking casually, and then I lost my job. So at the moment that happened, like there was no way we were going to be able to cover a mortgage or even really get like approved for much of anything, and so all house buying went on hiatus. Until I got a new job. And so the job was still just a term position. So we weren't starting to shop for houses yet, but we were kind of like assessing the financial situation. And then the moment that my job became permanent, that's when we started shopping for a house, because we're like, okay, I can prove that I have a permanent position. Greg has a permanent position. We're going to be able to get a mortgage. And so I think we were shopping for like 6 or 8 months. Seriously, I could be wrong though. It could have been closer to a year. But I've only had my job for a little over a year. So I think it was 6 or 8 months. And we were looking with a realtor. That's what we chose to go with. And a lot of the houses that we looked at, quite frankly, like Greg and I were checking the listings really regularly, and my mom was also checking the listings very regularly. So a lot of
my mom was looking for rentals for us too.
Yeah.
I know
So,
you're not happy.
a lot of like what was on the market we were already familiar with, but the realtor just helps with all of the paperwork, getting all that organized, so you don't have to have any contact with the seller at all, and smooth out that process.
Your job help with that process, Greg?
Like help with the buying process, like in
yeah,
terms
because
of like knowing how things
every
work,
single
or...
house goes through your job.
Well,
right?
Are you accusing him of
houses...
insider trading?
He's like vetting every house that goes on the market.
Yeah, like a lot of houses, like I saw a lot of houses as they came onto the market, just due to the nature of my job. But like the ironic thing was, I saw this house come onto the market. I looked at the photos and was like, not interested. This is not gonna work out. Like it didn't look good in the photos at all. Didn't. And so it was actually Ashton's mom sending it to us that we were like, okay, like we can maybe like book a showing and check it out. I don't think it's gonna be good. But
and then we came in person for the first time, and it was so much nicer than it showed in the photos, which was really nice.
Which was to our advantage.
There was not tons of people, I don't think, looking at it. Like it had an open house, and we were like practically the only ones there. There's like one neighbor who came by.
We offered like 20 below, right?
Below asking,
and then they countered at like
10 below.
Something like that.
I was really happy with the place when we saw it in person, and we thought we might be able, because we're not, sometimes the housing market is very competitive, and so you have to move fast. Like it comes on the market, you like cancel all your plans just to like beeline it to the house and try to get in, get in an offer like ASAP, like just name a number and throw it in there. And that's not who Greg and I are. Like I need time to be able to think about it and feel more confident that I'm making a good decision. And so I knew that those houses that like sell in 45 minutes, that was not going to be for me. I just like, I'm not interested in that kind of
that stress.
So it couldn't be too good of a deal for you, kind of.
Well, I just wasn't willing to compete at that level. But with this house, because the photos were so terrible,
I don't think they had as many people
there
looking
wasn't that
at
many
it.
people. So
you had some time.
I was able to like.
Sorry, to clarify, the photos were terrible, or the
photos didn't
like
show
the photos
the house
were
well.
Okay, but the house itself was
the house when we came here looked
the
good.
photographer had done a not so great job.
Yeah, just generally on houses they use like that crazy fisheye lens to make everything look so much bigger than it was. And with this house, it was almost the opposite. Like I looked at the photos of the kitchen and I was like, that is a tiny kitchen. Like there is no space in there at all. And then you came into the house and you're like, no, this is like a normal sized kitchen, if not a spacious kitchen. Like there's lots of room here.
Lots of counter space.
There's a lot of different spots where you looked at the photos and it made it look tiny, but then you came in person and it looked a lot
this is
bigger
good.
and nicer.
It
also like was not furnished very well in the photos, because it was like half furnished in some areas. There was like an air mattress in one of the rooms.
So one of the kids was living here, and
so it wasn't showing very well in the photos, but it looked a lot nicer in person. So I think that helped, so that we could kind of, like, when you do go through the home buying process, there is just a lot of things to do and a lot of deadlines to meet, because you do want to be able to move at it at a fairly brisk pace. A lot. But at the same time, we weren't like just beelining it through the process, so it gives you a little bit more space to like calmly go through the process.
But we were like, time wise, we were hitting a lot of great points, because like shortly after, like a few days after or a week after that deadline for like our mortgage rate, rates went way up.
I was gonna be my next question. Where did you get caught in
it had
interest?
So it had like bottomed out to like an all-time low, and we got it when it had gone up a little bit to more like average normal time numbers.
Sometimes low.
And so at that point we it was actually a financial advisor who recommended that we get like a locked-in rate, and so we're like, okay, but like we got the rate, and we're like, it's like normal, like chances are we're not.
So it expires after like 3 months or something like that.
Yeah, we're not going to end up using this. So it was a 3-month lock-in of that rate, and so we're like, whatever, it's there if we need it. And then we found this house and we put in an offer. It was accepted. And so we had a possession date if we were able to get all of our, the inspection and all the things done, then we would get that possession date. And that's what matters when it comes to mortgage numbers. When it's possession date, not actually when the paperwork is signed. And so our possession date was 2 days before the 3-month thing expired.
Oh, yeah.
And so when we had our choice of how are we going to finance this, I called around to a couple of different mortgage brokers. And each of them I said, I have a locked in, rate at this much. I just want to know, can you beat that? And each one of them was no, call them right now.
Do that.
Make sure you can still get that, because that's good, because it was right after that they started
really, and then and they just skyrocketed. So we were able to lock in a very low mortgage rate.
It's not that bottomed out level that it was before, but it's this rates.
It's slightly below normal, I would say. So and so then that was really helpful. And also this is a time now in the market where my association has put out research and stuff that they've done in collaboration with a few other associations about how the inventories within Saskatchewan for houses is super low right now, and that there needs to be a movement to actually build way more houses than even we essentially need to build just as many houses as we built from now back to 1990 something or whatever. I can't exactly remember the exact year, but we have to build that exact same amount of houses within the next
5 to 10 years,
5 to 10 or whatever,
in order to cover
the demand of what's required. So it's we need to.
Do we remember before COVID, a couple years before COVID? So it would have been 5-ish years ago, at least. That's the point when I last remember there being a whole lot of discussion about all these vacancies. There was this all-time vacancy rate.
There was a rental vacancy for a little while.
Was it just rental related? Because I know that they were if you drive around the city, we see all of these new developments, and I constantly am thinking about that. I'm when I was a kid, this whole area of the city didn't even exist. It just wasn't even there. There was no even development there. This building was all out in the boonies by itself, and now it's in the middle of this new neighborhood. And so to me, that discussion was happening, but it was regarding all kinds of buildings. But you're saying that it was primarily
it was primarily rentals
and townhouses,
and part of the problem was that the rental prices weren't coming down.
Right.
Even though there was all of this vacancy, there were a lot of articles talking about people who want to rent can't financially cannot rent at the prices that the landlords are offering their spaces in. And so the landlords are well, we can sit on this for a while. Somebody will come and rent it, but nobody is coming and renting it because they're not bringing their prices down.
That was when we were looking for the house previous to the one we currently rent. We were looking to move out of our first place. And we were looking for these, we had these good enough leads to places that were fine. They were all right. They weren't phenomenal, but they were all right. But they were at $1,200 or $1,400 a month
for a basement
and
suite.
Granted, it was all included, but it was for a basement suite.
It's for a basement.
And you're why is it 12 to 14? That seems insane, especially for the age of the house and the quality of life that you would expect to have there. And I understand this is it's just such a privileged conversation we're having right now, and it's it dawns on me every 5 minutes, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. But we weren't even able to realistically consider that, even for ourselves, for the jobs that we had at the time. That wasn't going to be, we weren't going to be able to, I mean, we probably could have made it work, but it wouldn't have been we wouldn't have been living our best lives kind of thing. And there is, and you and Holly, you were using these filters on Kijiji and Facebook Marketplace, so you would get the announcement or notification whenever something came
alerts.
up for sale or a new thing was posted. And sometimes there'd be these things that were posted again, and then you'd look and they were just repostings of the same place, and it was the same price. The ad was just expiring, and so they were just renewing the ad for the same price. And we looked at a couple places that had been up there for 6 or 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah, landlords
Like Holly
are
had
just
been
not willing
looking
to go
since we
down.
moved into the first place that we were at.
Yeah.
Just like off and on, because we knew eventually we'd want to get out of that place anyways, and then circumstances pushed us to moving out. So then we had to find a new place, and so it wasn't like 6 to 9 months, and they're not dropping the rent at all, and it's like vacant for 6 to 9 months, or whatever the opposite of vacant is, occupied. Unvacated.
Think about those bathrooms on the airplane where it's vacant in green or occupied in red.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, I was thinking of the hotels, which are like vacancy, no vacancy. So unvacant, no occupied place that is maybe bringing in $400 less a month,
Right.
but still
$1,000 a month. Like,
but they were thinking like, if I
knows?
do a year lease, then I'm stuck at that amount for a year.
And they don't
But
want.
the
They
other
didn't want to
option-
bank on somebody coming in right away, probably, as
Yeah.
opposed to now you're 9 months down the road. You kind of wish maybe somebody had come in,
Yeah, and even done a month to month, but
or
a lot of
somebody that
landlords
just
don't
doesn't
want
care,
month to
and
month.
that's fine. Somebody just might not care, and then that's up to them. But
The nice thing about renting is that you do know the price ahead of time of
Yes.
exactly what you're going to be paying. Sometimes utilities aren't included, so then you have to kind of guesstimate what utilities are going to be, but largely you know what something's going to cost ahead of time, and that's what a lot of people are scared with buying a house is because
it's all the unknowns.
all,
of those
all that you
fees.
get to see when you go to look at a house is like the listed price, and if it was done through you can look online to see what the tax for the year was the previous year,
Yeah.
but there's no promise that
As in
that is
property
going to
tax,
the
or-
property
Okay.
tax,
Yeah.
but there's no promise that that's going to stay the same.
but it should be around that at least.
Yeah, it just if they come to your property and reassess it, then you'll be paying a totally different number.
And eventually your mortgage rate's going to change.
Exactly. So it's a lot. It's not the same amount of money all the time. And I think what helped me through that process of buying and trying to figure out how much everything was going to cost is I used Reddit a lot, and it was super helpful.
Yeah. Is
Is there
Especially
like
for
a Canadian thread for housing, or
just
is
in Saskatoon.
Like
like r/Saskatoon or whatever. I looked up because a lot of people. I was wondering like, what does gas prices look like for a house that was built in the 90s,
Yeah.
or what does electricity cost
that
for
month to month bill look like?
Exactly, because I wanted to kind of know what I was budgeting for. For home insurance, I was able to do some online
Calculator.
Yeah,
Yeah.
things to try to guesstimate about how much money I could pay for home insurance. But yeah, on Reddit, I've managed to find a bunch of different people in Saskatoon who were mentioning like the square footage of their house, the year of their house, and then how much they pay for each of their utilities on average.
And
Yeah,
do they
that's
talk
winter,
about
summer.
like how heavy of a user they are? Like,
Yeah,
are
they'll
they,
mention that like I have 4 kids, or like it's
Gotcha.
just me
Right.
and my partner.
Yeah.
We love
as
air
to-
conditioning.
I feel like
Yeah.
when we were looking for a rental, or maybe we were chatting with somebody that was looking for a rental, I feel like there was one instance where we were able to corroborate some of that information. Like, was there a website or something that we went to where it was like or we asked to see the last 3 months of bills, or somebody offered that so that we could get an idea?
I don't
Is
think
that
we
a
ever
thing?
saw the actual bills, but
Okay.
there were several landlords that when I was speaking to them, I asked, especially sometimes landlords will be like, oh, this is the rent. It's utilities are included unless your usage goes up a whole bunch, and then we would adjust accordingly. And then
And
I
you're
would
like,
go,
what's the threshold?
What was the usage? Can you tell me what the other people's average was and who was living there, or like how many people and what size of people, like whether they were children or not. And so we did get some information through that.
Okay.
A couple of landlords were willing to give that. And then other ones where utilities weren't included, the landlords were like, I don't know what it was because I wasn't paying it.
Right. Yeah.
So like,
Okay. I just thought I remembered because when you started talking about Reddit, I know that we hadn't used it, but I was wondering if maybe there was a situation where we saw a few bills or something like that. But
Yeah.
I think maybe that was one of the things when we were looking for another rental. When we considered rentals, we considered all the aspects of it, not just like, is it in a nice location? and can we afford the rent this month? Because then like, well, what about in the winter? What about in the I feel like that was one of those details that we were trying to.
I think it's interesting looking for a rental, the location, other than it being not in like a dangerous part of the city, hadn't ever really mattered to me, but location was really important for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, we had narrowed it down to essentially 3 to 4 different neighborhoods that were all kind of in the same area of Saskatoon that we were looking for, and we were exclusively looking for homes like just in that area,
which limited us in terms of like what's available.
But at the same time, that's where I wanted to live.
Broad,
So yeah, we wanted to be by the river. We wanted to be close to the church that we're going to, and we, I guess, just kind of liked this
segment.
Segment of the city. So,
well, it's nice to be able to do that when you're renting, because you know that you're going to be able to continue to rent at what you're renting for. Like what I mean is you don't have to make a choice right away. Our second place that we lived in, our landlords had decided to sell the house, and so we were forced to find somewhere else. And that is not as nice as being able to take your time and look for it in a location that actually matters to you.
And then the second place was just like the other tenants we were sharing the space with just wasn't ideal, and so then that kind of forced our hand too. But we weren't being forced out, so we had
that
time.
Was very kind. They weren't ideal.
Well,
they were awful.
It's not wrong.
Yeah. It was very kind of you.
But, yeah.
Yeah, it was funny, though, as we looked for houses, the things that we were looking for became more and more specific. You know, I know first when we were looking for houses, it was like, okay, it needs to be in one of these neighborhoods that we're looking at, and I really like an open concept living area. Like, I don't like the ones where the kitchen is its own separate like room, and the dining room is its own separate room, and the living room is its own separate room. I wanted everything to be, if not all together, at least like very close to one another without big walls in the way.
Right.
And then that was like pretty much it, you know, because we don't have kids, bedrooms wasn't a big priority for us. And so that was basically it. And I think as we did more house shopping, there was more things that we specifically really liked.
Interesting.
That we started narrowing down.
To look for.
Well, because you'd seen what was out there and what was available, and then you start. And then we got ourselves into a little bit of a corner a few times when looking, because then we started to see like all the different options, and then wanting a house that had all the different options, and you just have to realize like that unless you build it yourself, it's not going to have like, you might luck into something, but it's probably not going to have everything that's on your list. And so then we started doing this thing where we had like a list of like requirements, and then a list of what was like add-ons that would be like we would really like to have benefits. These. And so then it was almost like a tiered list. Like, does this check all these boxes? Great. Does it check the second set of boxes? Most of them at that point were like, let's do a showing or something like that. I just remember we were doing that a few times. And then there was a time when we were looking for, well, because we started finding these like super expensive suites, we were like, well, why don't we just pool money with somebody else that we know that's looking for a space? And so listener of the podcast, Stevie, and was looking for a place with us at one point for a hot second. And we were like pooling resources to find that. And I think that's kind of when about the time came in, because then we needed to start checking boxes like, do we have separate spaces from each other? And I still remember a few houses that we saw that were like not unlike this feel of this house, but like with a huge basement. It's almost like an entire house in the basement kind of feel. Just some really like interesting architecture. But ultimately didn't check off enough of the boxes. So
it's nice to know what you're willing to be flexible on and what you're not. Like at the beginning, we were willing to be flexible on if there was a garage, and then as we did more house shopping, we were like, I think every time there's a house that doesn't have a garage, we go to go see it, and we really like it, but we don't put an offer on it because it doesn't have a garage.
Well, and also there's a lot of ones that didn't have even opportunity to build a garage later.
Yeah.
So
that's a big
eventually
deal
we were
too.
just like, okay, I'm just not going to look at the house unless it has a garage, because it's become something that's important to us.
What is it about a garage
It's
that is important to you? Because
we didn't realize.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You have a garage.
You have a garage.
It is attached to the house.
It's double.
Is it?
Oh,
It's double attached.
Double attached.
Double.
Yes.
No, double like two.
Yes.
It's
a 2-car garage.
Two-car garage, but it's got
attached on both
space on the sides. So when you have 2 cars parked in, the mirrors aren't touching the walls. There's space.
Yeah.
Like
there's enough.
Not
It's
tons,
tight,
but you
like
can get-
it's always going to be tight.
There's some
in
shelving,
those,
because I know some people will have like a garage that could probably fit 3 cars, but they have a
It's
double
not
door
one of
so that you
those.
have room on the side. Now our garage that we have at our rental is similar. Ours is insulated. Is yours insulated?
Ours is not insulated, but
Okay,
we also
and
don't.
Is it heated?
And it's not heated.
Not heated, which wouldn't make sense. Ours is also not heated. So what is it about a shelter that is attached that isn't heated,
It's wonderful.
isn't even insulated, is still going to be cold? What is it about it that attracts
and
you?
I think just to go back a little bit, like I think we initially were like, oh yeah, garage whether attached or not. But now living here, you were just commenting
I love having an attached garage.
Yeah, me too.
to not have to walk outside. Like the last house that we were at, we eventually did start
It's so
renting
bougie.
the garage as well, and then Ashlyn has to like walk out in the cold to the garage, and sometimes that doorknob did not work all the time. So it was one of those things where it was just cold, right? So whereas here it's like you literally don't face the outdoors until you get to work, at which point you have to walk a little bit to the entryway. But
We have a little thermostat, like a portable one in our garage, because we're always curious as to what the temperature is in our place.
We should do that.
And like
nice.
just a cheap one, like
Yep.
$15-$20, and we've got one upstairs as well for our bedroom just to see the
Nice.
difference because we're on the second floor
Yep.
up there, and then we've got one in the basement so that we can kind of monitor. In the summer, we monitor the humidity
Canadian
levels.
Tire.
Mm.
They were cheap.
in the winter, we can monitor the temperatures. And our garage, we find, again, it's insulated, but it
right.
tends to be. So on the other day when it was minus like 20 outside or minus 15, it was still
Centigrade.
like Celsius. Yeah. It was still 9 point something, plus 9 point something.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good.
Celsius.
Yeah, it
And
stays
it
pretty
dropped down to about 4 or 3 the other day when it got down to like minus 25, minus 30.
Yeah. That's still a significant
It
difference.
usually sticks around 0.
And it's
Yeah.
usually by the middle of winter, we're usually
Yep.
seeing around 0 to like minus 2 or 3.
Not
Okay.
bad.
That being
This is
said,
good data to hear.
that being said, it's insulated,
Yeah.
and so we have that added
Yeah.
benefit of
Yes.
it.
Yeah. We'll be curious
but it's
as
not
to how this.
But it's not
this one
perfect.
does.
Like there's
Yeah.
spots where the seal on the door, like you could feel the wind when it's pushing.
Right.
But like just for us, for having also that resource of a little bit extra storage space, which is one of the things that we were always looking for in a house, was the extra storage space. And we don't have access to the whole garage. There's stuff of the landlord's on one side, but we've got a decent amount, and we can kind of keep the stuff out of the garage that might freeze in the winter if we're worried about it, or still have access to that stuff. And it's still chilly, but then you like never have to scrape your windows.
Never have to scrape your windows. That is
That's
and
one
that
of my
is for
favorite
me.
things.
Yeah, 100%.
probably it.
Because like
Yeah.
It pays for itself.
it was so frustrating, especially like Ashlyn works like mornings. So
Well,
Yeah.
morning/nights.
morning/nights, and so to have to
Yeah.
like scrape your car
At
that
2
time
Mm-hmm.
would be brutal. And
does
so
suck.
I would be so angry
Yeah.
every
Yes.
day.
yeah, and so it's just there's a huge quality of life perk of having that attached garage where you can just walk in and you're good to go.
Even just the headache of not having to, like, we had to
Even
configure
to warm your car.
Yeah, we had to figure out a way to like jerry rig this. We had a friend that built this, basically a hangman's noose kind of looking thing. It's like the thing that you would maybe hang somebody from, but instead we just had an extension cord going up and over the sidewalk.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Because you in the city you're not allowed to have cords running along the sidewalks,
Yeah,
and we
the
were
nice Canadian hockey stick electrical cord
Yeah.
set up. Yeah.
Because we didn't have a tree right nearby
Yeah.
to throw it over.
Yeah, and so At our first place, we did that because there was a school right across the street, and I was not going to have anything happening. Like, I wasn't going to have somebody tripping on it and pulling the block heater cord out of our car, or tripping on it and hurting themselves, and then we get in trouble. Yeah. And so this was just the safer bet. And
it's also easier to shovel.
Yes, for sure. You don't have to worry about getting tangled. Now, the thing about that is that if you don't get a heavy-duty enough cord, which the heavier-duty cords that are longer are way more expensive than the lighter-duty cords that are longer, like, then the lighter duty cords become brittle in the winter, and then they start to break and crack, and it's just like a whole thing. And then sometimes you wake up and you realize that the outlet to the outside of the house has tripped in the middle of the night because it's, I don't know, too much moisture, it got too cold, or something random. It didn't like how long the cord was drawing power in the winter. I'm going to shut off on you. And I know that there's safety features, and so I'm not going to knock the features, but like, just being able to pull inside and shut a door, and it's chilled, but it's
but you don't have to plug in
that's
at
so
all.
much nicer.
And we were even thinking of like, if we ever do switch to like having more of like an electric car, it's also just a perk to be able to have that quick access.
Plug it into your house.
Yeah.
So I want one so bad.
Yeah.
They're getting more and more like reasonably priced every year.
I know.
So yeah, I think one of the perks of having a garage somewhere on the property is that because in Saskatchewan, because of our winters, garages are highly valued. There's only so high that your house could possibly sell for without having a garage.
Oh, that's interesting.
And you kind of max out there, is what our realtor was saying, that like, because it doesn't have a garage, you're not going to be able to have buyers that are of a higher income level that would be able to afford a more expensive house.
Even if they could build a garage.
Because they want a garage.
Even if they could build one, it would be like, well, I'm not going to pay more just to have the option to build one.
Yeah. So it is nice.
You pay for the convenience. It's already there. It's
to have one that does have a garage. It means your price can be,
your resale value
is much better.
Yeah, that's fair.
Now, you guys also have AC.
Mm-hmm.
Was that one of your must-haves?
We actually didn't have it originally. Like it was advertised as being there, but it did not work.
What?
Has an AC. Fine print.
AC.
Fine print.
Does not
we didn't really find out that it didn't work until like
you needed to use it.
Until we needed to use it. At which point, then it's like, it's too late to mention anything. So
would that not be part of the check?
It was
the
a pretty cheap
inspection
fix.
They couldn't
test it because at that point it was too cold. It was during spring, so this is like right. So this is like May, right?
Well, it was before May because that's when we got possession.
Yeah,
but they can't. You can't. They won't turn it on in May.
No.
Oh. Well, April, but yeah.
Because the outside piece
it's outside, so like that's
frozen.
Yeah.
You would think that.
So
what about people buying houses in winter? That's the other thing, is like trying to find a place in winter, trying to look in winter. You can only look at so much stuff, and then summer comes and the yard is exposed, and everything that hasn't been,
there were graves.
Well, there's just like I don't know, just the winter covers a lot of things.
It does really cover a lot of sins.
Really hard to get a good visual.
My parents flip houses, and so there are certain properties that they strategically try to sell in the winter or strategically try to sell in the summer, because if the landscaping is great, you want to be able to show that off.
Show it off. Yeah, it makes a big difference.
And you can't show that in the photos?
Well, it's hard to like get that experience of being like, wow, when you're touring a house to see this wonderful landscaping, if it's in the winter, because you're not going outside. It's like there's snowdrifts in the backyard. Like, why are you going to traipse around back there to go see the cute birdhouse set up or whatever? But there's also specific houses where if the driveway is particularly bad, it's an expensive thing to get changed. You can only really do it in the summer, so sell in the winter.
Like, you can still look on Google Maps and like go. Well, you can go on Google Maps and kind of see, okay, this is what the driveway looks like, or this is what the house looks like in spring, or whatever.
And you can still scrape it off and take a look at it. Like, it's not like it's
not like you can't.
It's your responsibility as the purchaser to be able to inspect the home. And so if there's snow on the roof, you have to be able to scrape some of
to
the
see
snow
what the
off
roof
to
tiles
see
look
what
like,
the-
right?
what it looks
Yeah.
like.
I guess the flip
Yeah.
side of that is,
But
like,
it
we know
doesn't
some people that have,
showcase it.
yeah, we
Yeah.
know some people that there are people that have bought houses during the summer, and then winter comes along and you get ice damming, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
that would have been something nice to know about.
ahead
And
of
so
time.
there's elements of
Yeah.
that I feel like, isn't there some kind of requirement for, like, when the owner is selling the house, they are supposed to divulge these things, but there's no real way to, like, prove
Yeah, you
that,
can't police it.
like, you
Yeah.
can't unless they
No,
are
and it's always to like the
recording
best
for a
of their
year.
knowledge, right? And which
Well, I
that
mean, if
that
you've been living in
definition
the house
can
for like
be
40 years or 50
anything
years,
like
ice
but,
damming has been happening for more than
but
just
even
a
then,
year,
like
you know.
like oh yeah, that just happened recently or whatever,
oh,
right?
this
Like
is the first time that's ever happened.
exactly.
Oh,
So like,
I doubt
But
it.
there's definitely a lot of
also,
outs.
interestingly, there are things in my life that I don't think about unless they're
Yes.
happening. So, like, you're about to sell your house and you think that you've disclosed all of the things about your house.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I don't know, a year from now, you hear that somebody's having the ice damming issue or something like that in the house that you sold them. And you're like, oh, right. Like, I forgot about that.
Who's gonna check up
That
on
was
that?
a thing that we dealt with for the last 3 years, but because we sold and like only even thought about selling in the summertime and it went so quick or something like that, right? Like, I didn't even think about it. I can see that being a thing as well.
Or sometimes just like if you are able to do things preventatively. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of houses in Saskatoon are getting a little bit older, and so they're sinking into the ground a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, your grading
Mm-hmm.
goes more and more towards the house.
Yeah.
And in Saskatchewan, when do you get the most water? Is when the snow
spring.
melts.
Mm-hmm.
So what you can do to prevent that is like shovel all the way around your house a bare patch
Yeah.
so that the water goes into the ground and not along the
Right
sides of your
alongside
house.
us.
Yeah.
So somebody else could buy it and say like, there's crazy water damage here in the winter and it like floods every year.
Mhm.
But if you were shoveling it away, you'll never know if that was a problem because
Yeah.
you were
that's
preventing
fair.
it ahead of time.
We
Yeah, that's tricky.
have not a thing that we were looking for, but a thing that's definitely fun and a
Mhm.
nice benefit is that we have solar panels.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
So
I
for
love it
us,
so
for us, that means that
much.
our landlords
I
still
don't think I
pay
even
for
knew that.
energy.
Oh,
or
really?
if they
No.
pay for energy at all. But
They've told us that in the summertime, our usage is well below and they
Yeah.
make a profit off of the power because they
Yeah.
sell
Yeah.
it back to the grid.
Yeah.
And then in the winter,
That's cool.
they do pay for energy, but it is supplemented
Mhm.
by what the solar panels get.
Hmm.
But in the winter, a lot of people worry about snow falling on there, but because the winter just doesn't have in Saskatchewan as strong of sunlight, the difference is minimal
Mhm.
whether the snow stays
Mm.
on them or not. Just
Pretty
because you
much
don't
every
have
time
enough
you
sunny
look
days,
up, there's
basically.
clear
But
panels.
It is still worth it for them. They say that the profit that they make in the summertime covers anything that they have to pay in the wintertime. And even still, they're making money
Wow.
off of our usage.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All you need to do is get solar panels and then an electric car.
I know.
You're set for life.
I know.
And then also
That's
it's a
what I
rental, so
want.
maybe not.
Yeah.
Oh.
But what I was
not
going to
coming
say
back.
to that regard was when we first moved in, there was this crazy issue with pigeons because they would camp out and lay
Oh.
eggs underneath. They'd build
They're
nests
like our solar
underneath the
panels.
top of the solar panels because
'Cause
we
they're
have
warm.
like 2 banks of them,
Mhm.
and so they would lay eggs in between the first and second bank and then above the first one,
And
so
then
that it would
they'd
just kind of
roll
wedge.
off.
And then when it was windy, the
Oh,
eggs would
no.
roll off and crack, and so we'd have these like eggs on the ground.
Stupid pigeons.
And these crows would like fly past and terrorize them every once in a while. And so
Yeah.
we'd come home and there'd be like feathers all over the yard.
Yeah.
And so then once we got Odin,
That's hilarious.
it was
Isn't it
just
ridiculous?
we let him out into the backyard one day and there's just this dead pigeon, like this headless pigeon on the ground. Like obviously maybe there was a little bit of a
He
hawk
didn't
or
do
something in the area.
It was
Oh.
it was there.
Yeah,
and
but
we
he
let
was-
him out
he was-
and he was like, what
What?
is
Yeah,
this?
he
And
was
we were
about to
like,
be
what are
very
you
interested
doing?
Been a murder.
Yeah.
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 So then we were like, okay, this can't be a thing that we put up with.
I don't want
for
him
just
eating
forever.
disease-ridden pigeons.
So
Yeah.
we messaged our
He's gonna
land.
get a disease.
We messaged our landlord, and he knew a guy that could put up. I was going to say skirting, but it's like wire, basically, just
Oh,
like
yeah,
a fence
bird
around
fencing.
bird fencing right around the bottom of the nest of the
Panels.
of the panels so that they couldn't lay underneath it. So they could still lay in between the first and second panels. And for the next like month or two, we still did see some of them come back and like attempt. But then we haven't heard them all winter. We haven't heard them for the latter half of the summer.
Well, and you used to be able, you would get up in the morning and the whole
middle of
world
summer.
would be quiet.
Middle of summer.
And you would go to the bathroom. And this is about like where our top bathroom is about where they always hung out.
Yeah.
And you could hear them cooing. Like constantly, and you're like, okay.
And then there'd be little like it would be
Peter
dead quiet
and
and you'd
Penelope
hear
pigeons.
as they walk across the roof.
Like you could hear them, but we haven't heard them since.
That's funny.
Nicer upstairs tenants
Since
than our
that.
previous place.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
By far.
still kind of
Yeah.
annoying.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they would fly back and forth from our rooftop to the next rooftop and then to a third rooftop across the. We don't have back alleys, but if that other house attached to us was across the back alley, that would be what the house is, like a triangle formation. Then they would poop on that house and come back, and poop on this house and come back. And so I think we made
Was
it better
their
for
whole life.
everybody all around, just by not having the pigeons
Yeah, I
there.
think so.
To be honest, but like little things like that like improve the place. We know that we won't be there for forever, or we assume we won't be there for forever. So hopefully that improves it enough. Or it's a warranted improvement that the next owner or renter doesn't even like have to think about it.
Yeah.
It's like one of the, so it would be, I guess, to your example, Ashlyn, it'd be more like regrading the house so that it's not even just not an issue that he didn't think about, but it's just no longer an issue. And I like doing that for peace of mind for myself. So,
yeah,
you said
I don't understand how like people who live in bigger cities that are much, much bigger than Saskatoon, where you are going to live in an apartment for the rest of your life because everybody lives in apartments. Because if you're not familiar with Saskatoon, there are very few apartment buildings.
comparatively,
Comparatively,
a lot of the dwellings in Saskatoon are
single
individual,
family.
single family dwellings. So individual houses. There are apartment buildings, just not tons of them.
Well, and the culture here isn't such that you would expect to live in your apartment for your entire life.
No.
Even
The
if
cost of living in Saskatoon and the cost of housing in Saskatoon relative to the rest of Canada is very low.
Yes. Canada in general is very high.
Yeah.
But relative to the rest of Canada, it's lower. But I was going to say, even if you expect to rent for the rest of your life, you can rent an upstairs suite or a basement suite, and you would move from an apartment to a single family dwelling
Yeah.
that is rented out. Or then, like us, move to renting a home rather than owning that home. Yeah.
So you were saying that because of lack of children or pets, multiple rooms wasn't necessarily like a thing that you were looking
number
for.
Of bedrooms or like
so
a lot of families.
What was it about the inside of a house then? Because like your house is a relatively good size.
Yeah.
Like it's large.
It has
would
like a low
hesitate
square
to say
footage.
it feels
Interestingly enough,
larger just because of the way that some of the stuff is laid out.
Interesting.
Yeah, I actually so a lot of families are looking for 3 bedrooms up. That's important to a lot of families because if you have
You don't
the
want one kid sleeping by
stereotypical
themselves
mom,
or
dad,
something?
and 2 kids, then everybody's on the same floor, which is can be nice if you have younger children,
Sure.
rather than having them on a separate floor. Not required. Obviously, you can parent however way you want to parent, but a lot of people are looking for that.
Yeah.
And because of that, often your kitchen, living room, dining room area ends up being a little bit
Smaller.
squished because you have that 3 bedrooms upstairs, and because we
You
don't
also
have
have
kids, we were like perfectly fine with 2 bedrooms upstairs. In fact, we kind of preferred it
Yeah.
because then that just it
maximized.
evens out the amount of space in your home a lot nicer, so you don't have this like random gym-sized family room that is meant to as a playroom for your kids like terrorize, and then upstairs where you're actually like cooking and eating and living is like tiny because you have 3 bedrooms up there. So I much prefer the layout of this space, even though technically for the majority of buyers in our like class are looking for that 3 bedroom up.
Right. You said that the square footage is lower,
It's only just over 1,000.
which is crazy, I think, because it feels
it feels like a larger.
I would have guessed 12 or 1300.
Yeah.
From like being here.
It's not.
Yeah. That's great.
Which is interesting.
Well,
But
and I
also-
think that helps that it's the split.
Mm-hmm.
I like the split.
Well, and the fact that it's elevated and the windows down here make it feel like it's very well lit, and like you don't feel like you're in a basement. It makes it so that the spaces sort of merge a bit better.
We were also looking for.
You got this like lack of a wall here. It's a railing, so you can see up.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you can
Which
talk
doesn't-
to people above.
It's
like,
not great for like drafts or AC in the summer or the winter, but it's like better for feeling more
hosting.
communal.
for hosting
Yeah.
and having this at bigger.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do
makes the
agree
space
that
feel
like
bigger.
this house would not be good for if you had a couple of very little kids. This wouldn't be what I would be looking for if you had a couple of
No.
very little kids, because there's only 2 bedrooms up, because the upstairs and downstairs are so
kids can
deeply
share a
connected. Like all the sound is going to travel
Yeah.
really, really fast,
Mhm.
and
There's
you're never
there's
going to
no
be able to,
escaping the
unless
The
they're in a
noise.
the noise.
unless the kids are in a room with the door closed. That's the
Mhm.
only way.
Yeah.
We've got a group of or a family that are friends of both of ours, and they've got a house that's what would you call the house? It's got 4 levels technically, but yeah, it's got 4 levels. Like the garage,
Well, I think it's called a 4-level split.
is that what it's considered?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And being on the main quote unquote level, so the level that you come in from the front door on,
Mhm.
is different from the level that you come in from the garage door on. And then there's a basement under the garage door level, and then there's an upstairs with rooms on above the main kitchen living room level. And we can be in that main kitchen living room level, and the 2 levels down, it's really quiet because they're 2 levels below us, but
Yeah.
you can still hear kids. Like noise is just going to
Man,
travel
kids are
regardless.
noisy.
Kids are noisy.
So like I
What a
think
pain.
back to like my parents' house. My parents was just a bungalow.
Bungalows
like,
are really good for that
Yeah.
of canceling out sound,
Well, and-
because
but-
it's
but
a
we
full
didn't-
flight of
Now
flight of stairs that
we didn't have
often
like a
has
finished
door.
ceiling in the
Yeah.
basement though. It was just rafters. Like it wasn't
Mm.
covered or anything or insulated. So I often wonder like how loud we were comparative.
Yeah.
I
that.
mean, your parents definitely heard all your news reports.
they were the ones giving us the tape recorder. At one point, we even had this little like Fisher Price one, like the little white plastic one with the microphone that attached to it. But then the microphone button started to die, and so like if you pushed it, it would sometimes stop recording your audio midway through.
Man.
So unfortunate. But yeah, for us, well, I'll let you speak to it. But you were saying that it was important that you felt like you could go somewhere in a house.
Yes.
So what
One
does
of the
that mean?
reasons that I dislike the bungalow in general is because you walk in, there's usually like the kitchen and living room space, whether that's totally open
Separate
or
or
not.
together, yeah.
And then you go down one hallway and all of the rooms are there.
Mhm.
And so then you've explored the entire place within 5 seconds. Like you can usually see
You can see from
everywhere.
the
Yeah.
door. Yeah.
and then you can go down the stairs and do the same thing because it's generally the same layout.
Yeah.
So
Family room and then one hallway, maybe with a couple of rooms.
yeah, whereas with something like a bi-level split, which I really like splits, you come in the door, you can go up or down. There's usually more than one hallway. Like you guys have back here, there's a
Yeah,
hallway and then another hallway that goes
it's an
around the
L-shaped
corner.
hallway in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
But it's L-shaped because it goes around your furnace room and into the garage.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it connects
So
to the
they've
garage,
ju-
but
they've
there's
just
also a
made
room
good-
back
they've
there
made
for your
good-
laundry.
Mhm.
And they made good use of that
Oh,
space.
they made
Yes.
fantastic use
Yes.
of the space in this house.
Yeah.
Because you could very easily have it go to the end and then go nowhere. And then that garage could be attached at your front door landing here and just where you have that little pocket
Yeah.
shelf for coats and mitts and stuff. That could be like a door going into the garage
Yeah.
very, very easily. And in fact, you have a door on the outside of your garage that's like right next to your front door.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's kind of like a weird, it's like they got a cookie cutter garage and like, they're like, well, you have to put a door in. And I guess,
Groceries.
Yeah, that's nice.
So you can
well,
go
that's
through-
why the
And
door into
also-
the...
So you don't have to
And
go
also
all the
yard
way
work.
around the inside of the
into
house.
the
There's a
basement,
bunch of-
yeah.
It's really handy to have
Yeah.
that door there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
But like
fair.
this place maximizes space so well. Like there is a room with a door right underneath the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
For the stairs leading down from the upstairs, that they even like did the flooring. They did
there's
lighting
linoleum, lighting, and drywall.
That's so
it's
great.
just bizarre.
And it's
in
storage
the
space,
storage
right?
under the
Storage.
stairs.
Yeah, and then it
Like-
goes
Yeah.
down even beyond further underneath the stairs,
Yeah.
and then connects up
Mhm.
with the furnace room. Like there was no space where they were like, we're not going to make this accessible.
Yeah,
like
dead
it's
space.
everything is
Everything is
Good use
usable.
of it for sure.
which is good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think this house would be perfect for hide and go seek because they
Yeah.
make use of every single like square
Little
inch.
nooks.
There is lots of good hiding spots.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I like about a house. Like I've been looking forever,
Mm.
just like
Mhm.
what's under this certain amount that's
Yep.
in Saskatoon, and seeing what's available for something that would maybe be something
Yeah.
we would want to pay. And that's actually been an interesting thing with COVID and the
Mhm.
differences between prices and like what's going on with the housing
Yep.
market right now as well. But yeah, whenever I see bungalows, I'm like, this is boring. I don't
Yep.
want it.
Yeah.
And I don't know what my
Your current house
The-
has a lot is very interesting
Yeah.
as far as the floor plan. Like
it is interesting.
It's
Yeah.
a usable floor plan, and I think that they made good use of the space that they
Mhm.
like. I don't have any other
It
way
is
that I would
bizarre.
chop up that space.
yeah.
But you're constantly exploring the house.
yeah,
as you walk
you're like,
through it.
what's this next
It's a
corner?
Yeah.
spiral.
Yeah, it does kind of spiral. Yeah. And I do like that about our current place. But I was just going to
Well,
say
that's because
the
they've got both
farmhouse.
staircases
Mhm.
right above each other.
Well, and in
both
the middle.
bathrooms sharing the same like stack.
Yeah.
And they've yeah.
Yeah. But the farmhouse that my parents live in,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would call that a bungalow. Maybe it is a bungalow. But the porch is so much bigger than a typical bungalow that
Well,
it feels weird.
It's like
Is
a
it like a
really
walkout
it's a really small porch to
basement?
step
No?
into.
Okay.
Mm.
But then you can go straight down to the basement from there, like at your
Mhm.
place, or you can go up 3 steps or 4 steps and you're on the main level.
Yeah,
Okay.
so maybe
So
it
it's
is
like
a
a-
So
split.
it's like a
Yeah.
split.
But it definitely, but that's the only real interest in it. Like when you go downstairs, there's a big room
Mhm.
and then another one little room off of that, and then another like storage space
Mhm.
off of that. And I guess there's the cold room that's down there as well. And then upstairs, same thing, but they have an addition that they put on
Mm.
for the dining room. And so I think maybe I like the splits because that's what I grew up in.
Mhm.
If we're gonna call that a split.
Yeah, it just
So
feels
but
a
the
little bit.
more the more places that I can discover, the
Mhm.
more I like a house generally.
It's so hard though, because when you look at the photos online, that
Oh,
is
it's
not
impossible.
necessarily what the house
Mhm.
looks like. There
Yeah.
are houses that we looked at the photos and we were like, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get in and just like everything wobbles,
Oh,
you know?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
like it just like it's
I think that
you can
house
almost just like sense that just like nothing actually fits into
I
this.
think the one
place.
house that you're probably thinking about
Yeah.
did have like a nice like 3D view, like where you can kind of walk around it.
Yeah.
But even that
Mhm.
was not enough. Like when because I think you were pretty hopeful,
Yeah, I was
And then
really
we went to
hopeful
that
with
house,
one.
and then you're
It
like,
was terrible.
that was really sad.
Yeah.
Like, it
just such a
I was
letdown.
yeah,
crushed.
such a letdown. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then
So-
there's other houses like this one where I looked at the photos and I was like, that is.
This might
Yeah.
be a waste of our time.
That's,
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
believe they're asking that much because
Which-
it's just not that nice. And then you
which-
get in, you're like, oh, it's so much,
Yeah.
so
Better,
much nicer.
yeah.
Just terrible.
Which
photos.
testifies to the importance of like a house showing. Like it is really important to actually
Yeah.
like go in, see what the house looks like, get the feel for it. Because yeah, like a photo of the Grand Canyon looks amazing, but actually like going there will make you appreciate it that much more. Like it's like being in the space is it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
What about the backyard? Like for us, the backyard was something that for me for sure, I wanted more of a backyard than a front yard. It's like wasn't terribly important to me. I do
Front
like
yards are weird.
I do like
Can
to
I
keep
just
the
put
front
that in
yard-
there?
front yards are weird.
I do like to keep the
Why?
front yard looking nice if possible, but we get so
You're on a
much sun on
corner.
our
Okay,
corner.
quick story about a front yard.
It just destroys the grass immediately and it's just weeds for the whole summer. But we wanted the backyard to be usable for like having people
Mhm.
over, so it
Yeah.
couldn't be too small. And there's some places in the city we've seen backyards that are
Yeah.
too small.
It involves my dad. So we gave him a hammock that he can like attach to 2 trees or whatever.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. Maybe
And he
it wasn't
put
us
it in
actually.
a front
I
yard.
think it was my mom because we normally give hammocks as gifts, and I think she found out about that.
Oh,
and
I
then,
see.
Okay.
and then, anyways, and so then, and so the 2 trees that they have are right in the front of their yard.
Yeah.
and so and so he's
And it
like.
was right in the front of their front yard.
Yeah.
So just next to the sidewalk.
Right next to the
that's
sidewalk.
So weird.
Yeah. And so
That's
like
too
so it's too close, and so he's there hammocking or whatever, trying to relax, and this person like walks by.
It's a double hammock.
Yeah.
So when he's in it, you just loop
You
it over
cocoon.
yourself.
Yeah. It's just
So
like
you're
you're
telling
like
me the
this
person
little
didn't know he was there?
Did they try to get in?
No, they didn't try to get in. No. I think they said something to him
Because they saw his shoes underneath
Yeah.
and the covered hammock,
Yeah.
and he was like, "You dead?"
or something. Yeah, like you in there. He's like, yep. And so, but it's just it was just like like front yards are awkward. Like
They're
it's hard to
so
use that
awkward.
space
It is.
and have it be like you're comfortable using it.
Unless every family in that like cul-de-sac or block or whatever
All
has
used their
kids
front yard
of the
like that?
same age,
Yeah.
Mm.
then I think front yards are fun because they can all come and play together
Yeah.
and everybody can see them
Which I think
from
is
their
the
own
intent.
houses,
Yeah.
and that's the
Mhm.
intent.
Yeah.
But society is, or at least here anyway,
Yeah.
society is not like that anymore. And so now it is weird
And there's a lot of
to
busy
have a
streets.
front.
and you don't
Like,
wanna
what
do
is
that
the
on
point of
busy
having
streets.
all that grass to cut in the front of your yard that
Yeah.
you are literally never going to go in?
It's great for like a block party or something like that.
Mhm.
Or,
Well, in
or
which
like
case,
to-
I would almost rather a big chunk of it be paved for like in front of our garage. We've got enough space for
barbecue or whatever, and-
two vehicles for sure.
Right. Yeah.
That you can park them off the street, and it's like that. I hate shoveling it in the winter because it's such a big space, but I
Yeah.
love that there's
I've realized we need
less
a bigger
grass
shovel.
to figure
Oh,
out.
yeah.
Yeah.
This.
Oh,
You
yeah.
need a
yeah,
push one.
Yes.
Or a
Yeah.
snowmobile.
Well,
you know, we all know we all might need a snowmobile, but like snow blower.
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna invest in a snowblower
I don't think-
anytime
Yeah.
soon.
No, but yeah. I mean, we'll see.
Maybe a bigger shovel.
Maybe if we're still here in like 20, 25 odd years, we'll be that nice couple that like goes and blows
Does
the snow
everybody's
off of
sidewalks.
see.
At
You can
least,
be that
yeah.
nice neighbor.
It's a dream.
It's not gonna be
So,
Ashley.
Yeah.
That's a cold activity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super cold, but
Yeah, it was pretty important to us each that even though we're renting, just looking for spaces that we made a bit of concession on the first place that we were in, but for the second and third places, we were trying our best to make sure that there was usable hosting space because we like to have people over, and we like to do 2 things. We like to watch movies with people, and so making sure that the living room can be maximized to have people over, and we also like doing games with people just like yourselves, and like people like yourselves, but also like yourselves like to play games. We also like to play games. That's what I meant more so. If you are not exactly like Greg and Ashlyn, but you're listening to this podcast and you like to play games, we're not discounting you from playing games. Just want to make that clear. But yeah, so we got a decent sized table, and we put it into this den space, and we have our games
nice
and movies
table.
and books around the outside, so that there's a perimeter around the table, and we can have very comfortably 6 people. Little bit squished, we can have 8,
Mhm.
and we've even brought down another table to extend it for larger gatherings if we have to. But yeah, our house, unfortunately, currently, as nice as it is for the 2 of us, as far as like hosting ability goes, I do feel like this is a nicer space, to be honest.
Mm.
I feel like
this
there's
will
more
accommodate, I
connected.
think, more, like a bigger group and still have everyone feel
even if they're not doing the
connected.
Yeah.
same, even if
Yeah.
they're not doing the same
Yeah.
thing. Some people over there playing video games, some people over here
Yeah.
playing board games. You still feel like you're in the same space.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's can be people upstairs chatting and visiting.
Yeah.
And just being able to hear them
Yeah.
over there just
Yeah.
makes you feel like a little bit more
Yep.
included, even if
Yeah.
you don't even know what they're talking about.
And we have like
Whereas if there was people sitting in your living room and then other people sitting in your like basement
Yeah.
board games area,
Yeah.
there's a door in between them. But even if that
Mhm.
was open, they
still
probably
feels pretty
wouldn't really
disconnected,
hear
yeah.
each other.
No.
You would have to probably have another group of people sitting in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And even then, the table has to be pushed against a wall because we have
It's so
we have a
long,
narrow.
skinny.
We have
It's a
like
The
a
long-
whole
narrow
house
kitchen.
is long and skinny. It's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely the smallest house in the neighborhood.
Mm.
So that leads me to think that it was probably one of the first ones built
Mm.
because it's right on the corner.
They're
Also,
doing some experimentation.
or just it was an inexpensive version of the
Interestingly-
house. So
So I said that I've been looking at like different houses
Yeah.
for quite some time. Earlier in the last like 2 months ish, I came across a house and I was looking through the pictures and I was like, is someone trying to sell our house? Like the
Oh,
inside
right.
pictures
Oh, yeah.
are the
Looked
exact
so
cookie
similar.
cutter.
Yeah.
Even some of the same fixtures.
Yeah, they must have
Yeah.
gotten
Some
the
of the
same
same-
builder. Or
like
something
it's the
that.
same builder. It like 100% the
same
same.
layout.
There was like one change in how like the
I think
main
we.
floor bathroom
Yeah, I think-
was set.
I
That's
think
funny.
we. I
and I
think
was like,
there
what
was a-
is happening?
Was there not an office? Was there not that like office room that we have,
I
or
like
something weird like
it was
that?
slightly, I think, wider, and so that office space wasn't. Our office space is a weird like trapezoid shape,
Yeah.
Okay.
and that one didn't have
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Or something about the 2 doors at the bottom in the basement. But anyways, it was I was looking through these pictures and I was like, is this a scam? Like,
Yeah.
did somebody take pictures of our house from a while ago when it was
Yeah.
like being sold and
But then the
are
outside,
trying to sell
the
it
outside
again or
the
something?
outside shots
Mhm.
of the house was clearly not.
Yeah,
our
it
house.
wasn't
Yeah.
our
And then-
house.
So I was like, well, it's not a scam. It's just probably not like there's only so many houses that a builder
Yeah.
builds.
It was
And so
just a
there's gonna be
cookie
more.
cutter builder kind
Yeah.
of house. And I was like, this is really interesting to
Yeah.
see our house on like a website to be sold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that like you guys mentioned was how you want a space that you're able to like host and you like to host people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like it's definitely the same for us. Like we wanted a space that was like very open. We wanted to be able to host people, which it's kind of interesting in this world where like I mean we're talking about front yards and how
Yeah.
we kind of like are very like segregated, and I
Yeah.
feel like the home has become more of this like safe space that's like your space that you get to kind of shield yourself from the outside world. You can watch
Oh,
Netflix, you can like decompress.
So you want to
Yeah.
have
And
an
it's like-
entire experience
It's
in
your
house.
zone
Yeah,
and your
yeah.
you know, and whereas but I think what's great about being able to have that hosting mindset is you're able to use your home not just for that safe space, which I like we do have those moments where we can like decompress and watch, and that
Mhm.
this is like this is our space to be able to
Relax.
and
Mhm.
and be able to kind of put those things aside.
Mhm.
But at the same time, to be able to welcome people in to this space and to be able to host and have this be a place of like warmth and fun and which I think is something that can be kind of missed, you know, in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is aspects where like kind of around Christmas time or Thanksgiving, you get to go back to the family, or and
Yeah.
then there is that
Mhm.
sense of like hosting that's kind of more culture kind of recognizes that
Yeah.
this is the time for that.
Yeah.
But to actually like
Realize the
have people over
necessity
and not
for
just
those
go out for
spaces.
drinks, but actually like have people over to your space.
Mhm.
I think is something that is unique and but something that I think is important and valuable, and that when people get invited into your house, I think there is this sense of it does build relationships in a much deeper and more meaningful way, in the sense that, hey, you trust me
Yeah.
with this, you know. So
Mm.
but
I agree. I think I was actually talking with your mom about this, about how we don't build communities around location anymore,
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
and how that used to be a thing. And so you used to
Be friends with your neighbors.
often have your neighbors
Yeah.
over for supper or whatever, or
Yeah.
they would pop over and ask for eggs or whatever. And because we now build our communities that we interact with in other ways, like based around which church we attend, or
Yep.
you know, just because our cities have
Sports
gotten
field
so
or-
big, whatever
Mhm.
hobbies you have,
Mhm.
or like the values that you
Yeah.
care about, that means that your home is now this very specific place that if you can bring those people into it, it's much more of a deepening of that relationship, because
Mhm.
you wouldn't it's
You
not
would
convenient.
normally,
It's
yeah.
not a convenient thing
No.
anymore
Yeah.
where it's just normal for your neighbor to come over
Mhm.
because somebody has to make the effort to come to your home
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you have to make the effort to make your
To
home
have
available
them.
for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was mentioning this at with some people from my church recently, but I think one of the things that makes me feel like as Ashlyn the most like loved is when I'm invited over to somebody else's house and it's a little messy. Like
you must feel super loved by us.
But
Or
that,
not, because I clean.
We don't always.
But when it's a little messy, that just
Mhm.
shows that you are okay with showing some of the more like real,
imperfection.
authentic, just
Yeah.
You're
like
just
this
comfortable
is just what
with
it
each
is,
You're
other.
you know?
comfortable.
Yeah.
Rather
Yeah.
than
Putting on a
'cause
show.
Mhm.
there is the time and place where the effort it takes to like really like tidy up everything and make everything perfect is
Mhm.
really welcome and nice, and that is a way to love others.
Case in
Mhm.
point, he said as he motions to the clean room that we
Yeah.
are filming in.
Yeah.
Not all the rooms are clean though.
Just down the hallway. It's a
Yeah.
mess. We just threw all of our stuff in
It
there.
actually is. Yeah. Either of those two rooms
Yeah.
are pretty bad.
All that matters is what's on set.
Yeah, but if you're willing to like just show a bit of like authenticity in
Mhm.
that, like
Mm.
maybe the kitchen looks like you cook food in it, and
Yeah,
maybe
that's
the
okay.
Mhm.
living room looks like you lounge there or whatever.
That
And-
you actually live in this
Yeah,
space.
and
Yeah.
you're
Mhm.
willing to invite people into that
Mhm.
generally shows like a deeper level of friendship. Because if you're
Mhm.
if you're getting together with some people for the first time, you like thoroughly clean
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And if you're getting together with
impression
someone
thing.
for like the 20th time,
Mhm.
you're like, okay, I
I
don't
still
have to worry
thoroughly
about
clean
like
everything.
doing my hair.
I'm pretty
I
sure
don't
they
have to
like
worry
me
about-
anyway.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so when people like kind of push that up earlier and
Yeah.
are willing to show what their house actually looks
It's
like
like
on day-to-day life.
Being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel
No, there's
like,
definitely
really
times where
loved.
it'll be like, oh yeah, Chris and Holly are coming over. Oh, good.
Yeah.
This is this. This will be good. Like the cleanup isn't going to be necessarily as spotless as
Yeah.
certain people, right? Because
I
like,
feel like your house has been clean when
It
we
has
come
been
over.
clean.
Oh,
but it's-
thanks.
but it's also, like if you go upstairs
But
to the
there are
kitchen right
dishes
now,
that need
there's
to be done,
dishes,
and that's
right? And
okay.
so
Yeah.
and that's fine. So
Mhm.
we trust you. So
Yeah.
There's dishes
we
at our place
we
too.
also
That's-
trust you. The one thing that we do make sure that we do when you guys come over is vacuum because
Yeah,
we do not want you
right.
to feel ill.
allergies and and that is
Your face is
Yeah.
like swollen to 3 times its
Yeah.
size. You're like, I feel so loved right now.
you guys are the best. yeah. Yeah.
Along those lines, I also really
I
like
had a really good mental picture.
Yeah.
where
Yeah,
his
my
face is
mental
the
picture
color
was
of his
great.
shirt. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also really like that. And one of the other things that I really like is when, and maybe this is just because I'm a lazy host, but when people feel comfortable enough in my home to just go through the cupboards and find
Oh,
what
yeah,
they
yeah.
need,
Yeah.
I really enjoy that.
I commented on that just the other day when you were like making popcorn and grabbing your container that
yeah.
you needed. And
Well, we
all that.
brought
So-
everything over, and so Greg probably thought that we used way more of their stuff than we thought.
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know.
I was up there by myself.
That was
Yeah.
good.
So it
you
didn't
come down
matter.
with, like,
Yeah.
fresh-
You were
fresh
hosting
baked-
yourself, which is great.
fresh baked buns from
Yeah.
somebody else's house, and they're like, didn't think we had those ingredients. Like, where we got those from.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes me feel loved as well.
Mhm.
It's just like be comfortable. My
Yep.
house is your house, and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mi hausa, su hausa,
Mhm.
as the saying goes.
Yeah.
No.
Well, thanks for letting us use your space.
Yeah.
You're very
Yeah.
welcome.
Thank you, everyone,
You
for coming.
and the listeners,
Yeah.
you are welcomed into our home.
Yeah.
She said gesturing to the cameras.
Yeah.
We need to have like alt text on this when we do video recordings because
Right.
the podcast people can't hear it.
Yeah.
Listeners.
Well, you can find us online at the Housebound Podcast at gmail.com. That's our email address. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Are we keeping
Anchored-
Twitter?
Oh, we might get verified.
Yeah.
If you want to send us $8, then we can get
Send us
verified on
$8
Twitter.
for a blue
Nice.
check mark.
That'd be swell. Anchor.fm/housebound is the place where you can find all of our episodes. Let us know what you thought about this one. Let us know what are your requirements, checkboxes for a house.
Mm-hmm.
And like this is just a conversation about something, like we've talked about all of this before. So this is really just like a formalized conversation of this topic. But let us know where, like, how do you feel like your priorities lined up with our priorities? Like hosting people, do you like to host people even? Would you rather live in an apartment? Do you live in an apartment and you would never trade it? Or is the townhouse the way to go? Like,
or see if from the hints that we've given you about our house, if you can creepily stalk us and find our address.
Or give us your address, your credit card number, your little code at the back.
Your code at the back.
CCV.
Yeah.
And we'll get
we'll steal your identity.
We'll get right back to you, and we'll apply for a house in your name.
That's why we're ending the podcast, because we're all in the witness protection program. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us on video, on audio, and this has been fun. We'll chat with you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Farewell.